The celestial Concorde, a marvel of ancient, unknown engineering, hung suspended in the black between the twin stars of the Mira system. Its purpose was neutrality, a sanctuary for diplomacy, and on rarer occasions like this one, a stage. Today, it was a stage for power, a grand military showcase designed to reaffirm the pecking order of the known galaxy, and the Titans were arriving. First to rend the fabric of spacetime near the Concorde was the Skoran Empire's flagship, the Worldbreaker. It was less a ship and more a mobile fortress, a kilometer-long testament to Skoran philosophy: might makes right, and enough armor makes one righter still. Its surface, a patchwork of gunmetal gray plates, bristled with weapon emplacements that promised overwhelming kinetic fury. High War Master Vargos Krell, a hulking reptilian with scales the color of burnished iron, surveyed the Concorde from his command throne, a predatory gleam in his vertically slit pupils. His ship was a statement, and he expected the galaxy to listen. Close, on its heels, a vibrant tear in reality announced the Era flock. From it emerged not one, but hundreds of sleek, dart-like vessels, their silver hulls catching the distant starlight. This was the Wind's Fury carrier group, and at its heart, though indistinguishable from its many children to the untrained eye, was Wing Commander Lyraxia's command ship. Lyraxia, an avian being with feathers of iridescent blue and gold, tilted her crested head, her keen eyes taking in the Worldbreaker with a flicker of something that might have been disdain for its brutishness. Speed, agility, and the overwhelming precision of 1,000 cuts, that was the Aran way. Then came the Volt Centigrate's contribution, the Theorem, a frigate that shimmered with contained energies. It was a blade of obsidian perfection, unnervingly silent, its every line speaking of hyper-advanced technology. On its bridge, Cognate Prime 9, a being of polished chrome and glowing blue optics, processed the arrival data with cold, unwavering logic. The Volt valued intellectual supremacy, their ships a direct extension of their calculated dominance through superior energy manipulation. A more visceral roar accompanied the arrival of the Krellnar Confederacy's Iron Fang. This vessel was a brute scarred and pocked from countless campaigns, its massive prow adorned with crudely welded trophies from past victories. Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist, a mountain of fur and muscle with tusks like daggers, let out a booming laugh that echoed across his bridge. For the Krellnar, war was a glorious, explosive affair, and their ships were built for joyous, head-on confrontation. Last of the expected giants was the Alarian Dominion's veiled threat. It didn't so much arrive as simply appear. One moment, there was empty space. The next, the elegant, almost ethereal lines of the Phantom cruiser resolved into visibility, its hull seeming to drink the light around it. Emissary Kalen Voss, a tall, slender Ilarian with an air of timeless grace and subtle arrogance, allowed himself a small, knowing smile. Their mastery of stealth and misdirection was legendary, a more refined, if no less deadly form of power. Inside, the Celestial Concorde's primary observation dome, representatives from dozens of lesser powers and neutral systems watched the display on massive holoscreens, murmuring in awe and trepidation. The air crackled with unspoken challenges and reaffirmed dominance. It was into this gathering of behemoths that a final, almost apologetic ripple in space-time announced one last arrival. The ship that emerged was underwhelming. Compared to the Titans already assembled, it was compact, almost Spartan. Its designation, painted on the hull in stark lettering, read, UNS Stark Raving Mad. Aboard the SRM, Captain Marcus Mark Cole leaned back in his command chair, a faint smile playing on his lips as he watched the holoscreen displaying the other vessels. "Well, Anya," he said, his voice calm amidst the silent tension on his own bridge. "We certainly are the ugly duckling at this particular galactic pond." Dr. Anya Sharma, her dark eyes alight with an almost feverish brilliance, stood beside him, clutching a datapad. "Appearances can be deceiving, Captain, and some ducks have very surprising bites." Her gaze was fixed on the alien flagships, not with intimidation, but with an eager, analytical hunger. On the observation deck of the Concorde, a few heads turned towards the newcomer. High War Master Vargos Krell let out a sound like grinding stones, which might have been a chuckle. "The Terrans," he rumbled to a nearby Skoran officer. "They send a patrol cutter to a council of dreadnoughts. Quaint." Wing Commander Laraxia's crest twitched. "One hopes they have brought adequate lifeboats. Even the usually composed emissary." Kalen Voss allowed a raised eyebrow. "The humans. So new to the galactic stage, so loud in their sudden expansion, yet seemingly so far behind in the true metrics of power. Their presence felt like a footnote, a diplomatic courtesy rather than a serious entry into this display of force." Captain Cole watched the subtle, dismissive gestures on the main screen, the slight turning away of the other flagships. "Right, then," he murmured more to himself than anyone else. "Let the show begin." He knew what they thought. He was counting on it. The Celestial Concord designated a vast expanse of empty space, littered with decommissioned asteroids and derelict drone targets, as the demonstration grounds. A hush fell over the observation dome as the first contender, the Skoran Empire's Worldbreaker, lumbered into position. Its sheer mass seemed to warp the light around it. High War Master Vargos Krell's voice, amplified throughout the Concord, was a gravelly boom. "The Skoran Empire values endurance, resilience, and the undeniable argument of overwhelming firepower. Observe." On the main holoscreen, a series of heavily armored drone targets, some the size of small cruisers, warped into the test zone. The Worldbreaker didn't maneuver. It simply was. Turrets vast as city blocks, swiveled with ponderous grace. Then, fire. Not beams or lances of energy, but colossal kinetic shells, each capable of shattering mountains. They slammed into the drones, with cataclysmic force. The visuals were brutal, visceral. Drones didn't just explode, they were obliterated, pulverized into rapidly expanding clouds of superheated shrapnel. Even through the vacuum of space, one could almost feel the impacts. Next, the Worldbreaker endured a barrage from automated defense platforms. Heavy, lasers, plasma bolts, torpedoes. Its shields flared, absorbing incredible punishment, and when they finally flickered, the projectiles sparked and ricocheted harmlessly off its meter-thick armored hide. Aboard the UNS Stark Raving Mad, Captain Cole watched, his expression unreadable. "Impressive stopping power," he commented, his voice even. "And it can certainly take a punch." Dr. Anya Sharma nodded, her fingers flying across her data pad. "Primitive, though. Brute force solutions to brute force problems. Thermodynamically inefficient. And that armor, a relic. So much mass to protect such conventional systems." Cole glanced at her, a slight quirk to his lips. "Not everyone appreciates disruptive innovation, Doctor." Back in the Concord's dome, Vargos Krell was basking in the murmurs of approval. His scaled chest swelled. "Strength respects strength. The Worldbreaker stands." Next came the Aeroflot. The Wind's Fury carrier didn't move to center stage. Instead, it disgorged its contents. Hundreds, then thousands of fighter-sized strike craft poured from its launch bays, forming a glittering, deadly cloud that spread out like a hunting pack. Wing Commander Laraxia's voice, sharp and clear as a raptor's cry, cut through the lingering awe from the Skoran display. "The Aeroflot believes in the supremacy of speed, precision, and coordinated assault. A single Talon may be weak, but 1,000 Talons, striking as one, irresistible." A new set of targets appeared, smaller, faster, and more numerous than before, simulating a pirate fleet or a dispersed enemy squadron. The Terran swarm descended. It was a breathtaking ballet of deadly grace. The tiny ships, painted in dazzling patterns, weaved and dodged simulated return fire with impossible agility. Their energy beams, though individually less potent than the Skoran shells, lanced out with surgical accuracy, striking critical points on the drones. Engines, weapon emplacements, command modules. They didn't obliterate. They systematically dismantled, disabling target after target in a cascade of precise, overwhelming strikes. Where the Skoran display was a sledgehammer, this was a storm of scalpels. In the Concord, the mood shifted from brute appreciation to admiration for artistry. Even Vargos Krell had to admit, if only to himself, that the Terran's speed was formidable, though he'd never trust such flimsy craft in a real engagement. On the SRM, Dr. Sharma was more animated. Fascinating network cohesion. Their battle algorithms are elegant. Sublight engine efficiency is remarkable for craft that size, but still reliant on overwhelming numbers, vulnerable to systemic disruption if you can break that network. Captain Cole nodded slowly. A different philosophy, but the same goal: incapacitate the enemy through superior application of force. He looked at the swarm, then at the image of the massive world breaker. Two very distinct schools of thought on how to win a fight. He leaned forward slightly. And both, I suspect, are about to see something they didn't account for in their curriculum. Lyraxia, her own demonstration concluded to a fresh wave of applause and admiring gasps, allowed her vibrant plumage to fluff slightly in satisfaction. "The sky belongs to those who can command it swiftly," she declared, her voice resonating with the pride of her entire flock. 2 down, 3 to go. The bar for galactic military prowess had been set incredibly high, a symphony of destruction playing out among the stars, each note a testament to alien might. And still, the little human ship waited, its oddly cheerful name a strange counterpoint to the grim business of war. The metallic tang of ozone seemed to linger in the Celestial Concorde's observation dome, even if only psychologically, as the Volt-Centigrade's frigate, the Theorem, took its place. Its sleek, featureless hull absorbed the ambient light, giving it an almost two-dimensional appearance against the starfield. Cognate Prime 9's synthesized voice, devoid of inflection or emotion, addressed the assembly. The Volt-Centigrade posits that ultimate battlefield control is achieved through the flawless application of energy dynamics and logical certainty. Observe. The Theorem faced a barrage similar to what the World Breaker had endured, but its response was vastly different. Instead of brute force tanking, layers of multifaceted shields shimmered into existence around the frigate, refracting and dissipating incoming laser fire, deflecting plasma bolts along complex geometric pathways, and neutralizing kinetic slugs by creating localized gravitic distortions that simply nudged them off course. There was no strain, no visible damage, just an intricate, silent dance of energy. Then, its own weapons fired, impossibly thin lances of pure, coherent energy that struck target drones with absolute precision, bypassing their shields as if they weren't there, slicing through armor to detonate internal systems. It was clean, efficient, and chillingly impersonal. Aboard the UNS Stark Raving Mad, Dr. Sharma hummed, a thoughtful expression on her face. Their shield harmonics are fascinating, multiphasic, adaptive. The energy lances are standard graviton-focused particle beams, but the targeting telemetry, it's processing terabytes of data in real time. Impressive, if a bit predictable. Captain Cole raised an eyebrow. Predictable? All their solutions lie within established energy paradigms, Captain, Sharma explained. Highly optimized, certainly, but they're still playing by the known rules of physics, just playing very, very well. Cognate Prime 9, its demonstration, concluded without a single wasted joule of energy, simply stated, logic dictates efficacy, before the Theorem retreated with silent grace. The display left many observers with a sense of unease. This was power of a different, more intellectually intimidating kind. The mood shifted dramatically with the arrival of Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist's Krelnar Ravager, the Iron Fang. Smoke, or perhaps venting plasma, still curled from some of its battle scars as it thundered into the testing zone. Ragnar's voice was a jubilant roar that needed no amplification. Enough with your fancy lights and quiet whispers. The Krelnar know what war is. It is the clash of steel, the roar of the cannon, the glorious bloom of an enemy ship reduced to its constituent atoms. Behold the beauty of true destruction. The Iron Fang didn't bother with finesse. It unleashed a volley of everything it had. Oversized mass drivers, unguided but devastating plasma charges, and swarms of heavily armed boarding pods that smashed into target hulks like angry fists. The result was pure, unadulterated chaos. Explosions blossomed across the void, magnificent and terrifying. Ragnar Stonefist could be heard laughing, a sound of pure, savage joy as his ship reveled in the carnage. There was no subtlety here, just an overwhelming, joyful application of brute force that appealed to a primal part of many onlookers. "Now that's a proper way to dispose of your enemies," Ragnar bellowed, thumping his massive chest as the last target drone vaporized in a particularly spectacular fireball. On the SRM, Cole allowed a wry smile. Can't fault his enthusiasm. Dr. Sharma, however, looked faintly disgusted. Such waste, the entropic cascading effect of those detonations alone, and the sheer kinetic overkill. It's like watching a child smash toys with a hammer. Finally, it was the turn of the Illyrian Dominion. The veiled threat didn't move so much as the space around it seemed to shift. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, only for faint sensor anomalies to hint at its presence as simulated patrol. Drones were tagged by targeting locks from unseen angles. Then, just as suddenly, it would reappear, kilometers from its last suspected position, having eliminated its targets without firing an obvious shot, perhaps through localized sensor scrambling or system overrides. Emissary Kalen Voss's voice was smooth as silk. "True mastery is not about the force you project, but the force your opponent believes you can project, or fails to perceive at all. The Illyrian Dominion prefers discretion." The display was unsettling. How do you fight an enemy you can't reliably detect, one that seems to play by different rules of engagement? It was a masterful show of technological superiority, subtle, yet undeniably potent. As the veiled threat dematerialized one last time, a palpable sense of awe filled the Celestial Concord. 5 empires, 5 distinct philosophies of war, each demonstrating a terrifying level of power. The combined might on display was staggering. It was into this atmosphere that the announcer's voice, now tinged with a faint note of curiosity, mixed with what might have been pity, called out the final participant. And now, the United Nations of Sol, with the UNS Stark Raving Mad. Aboard the Concorde, High War Master Vargos Krell rumbled to Wing Commander Lyraxia. "Are they truly going to proceed? After what we've witnessed, it is an exercise in futility." Lyraxia's crest dipped in agreement. Perhaps it is a new form of Terran humor we have yet to appreciate. Cognate Prime 9 remained silent, but its internal processors had already categorized the likely human demonstration as statistically insignificant. Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist was simply eager to get to the post-showcase feast. Only Emissary Kalen Voss watched the small human ship moving into the testing area with a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Perhaps the professional interest of an old power examining a very new and very unknown variable. Durwaim. Alien confidence was at its zenith. They had laid bare their might, shaken the stars with their power. What could this tiny Terran enigma, this Stark Raving Mad, possibly offer that hadn't already been dwarfed into insignificance? Captain Cole felt the weight of those unspoken questions, the galaxy's collective dismissive stare. He glanced at Dr. Sharma, who gave him a sharp, confident nod, her eyes glittering. "All right, Doctor," Cole said, his voice calm and clear across the SRM's bridge. "Let's show them something new." The UNS Stark Raving Mad glided into the designated testing zone. Against the backdrop of space recently scarred by cataclysmic energies and phantom maneuvers, it looked almost comically out of place. Its lines were utilitarian, devoid of the aggressive ornamentation of the Krellnar, the sheer imposing bulk of the Skoran, the shimmering intricacy of the Volt, the graceful menace of the Illyrian, or the overwhelming numbers of the Aran fleet. It was just a ship. Gray, functional, and, to the assembled galactic powers, decidedly unremarkable. A low murmur rippled through the Celestial Concorde's observation dome. On the main holoscreen, focused tightly on the SRM, the ship's name was clearly visible. Stark Raving Mad. High War Master Vargos Krell let out a snort that sounded like rocks grinding together. An apt designation. Only lunatics would bring such a vessel to a convocation of true naval power. Wing Commander Lyraxia's elegant feathered head tilted. One must admire their audacity, if not their shipbuilding philosophy. Perhaps they intend to bore the enemy into submission? Several of her errand attendants chirped in polite avian laughter. Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist, already imagining the victory feast, grumbled, "Get on with it, little humans. Some of us have thirsts to quench." Even Cognate Prime 9 after running a comparative analysis based on visible weapon emplacements and energy signatures, what little could be detected, filed a sub-report. Threat potential, negligible. Demonstration purpose, likely symbolic or politically mandated. Emissary Kalen Voss alone maintained a neutral expression, though a faint crease of curiosity appeared between his perfectly sculpted brows. There was something in the Terran demeanor, a lack of overt nervousness, a quiet self-possession that didn't quite align with the apparent inadequacy of their vessel. Aboard the SRM, Captain Marcus Cole felt the galaxy's collective gaze, heavy, with skepticism and dismissal. He could almost hear their thoughts. It was exactly the stage he and Dr. Sharma had hoped for. "All systems nominal, Captain," Dr. Sharma reported from her station, her voice crisp. Her usual slight eccentricity was replaced by a focused, almost fierce intensity. Her dark eyes scanned multiple readouts, a tiny, almost predatory smile touching her lips. Her creations were about to perform. "Understood, Doctor," Cole replied. He activated the ship-to-Concord comm. "Celestial Concord Control, this is UNS Stark Raving Mad. We are ready to commence our demonstration." "Acknowledged, Stark Raving Mad," came the somewhat bored reply from the Concord's flight controller. "Your designated target array is being deployed. Standard engagement protocols." Cole nodded. "Negative, Concord Control. We respectfully request a more comprehensive scenario." A pause. "Define comprehensive, Stark Raving Mad." "Deploy simulation." "Omega-7, if you please," Cole stated, his tone utterly calm. On the Concord, the flight controller, a junior officer from a neutral system, blinked. He consulted his console, then his supervisor. Whispers broke out among the technical staff. Omega-7 was not a standard demonstration scenario. It was a full-spectrum assault simulation, typically used to test the defenses of a fortified starbase or a coordinated battle group. It involved multiple attack vectors, swarms of high-speed drones, heavy cruiser analogs firing disruptive torpedoes, and simulated capital ships equipped with phase-shifting energy weapons. To face it with a single vessel of the SRM's apparent class was unthinkable. The supervisor, a grizzled veteran, leaned into his own comm. "UNS Stark Raving Mad, please confirm. Simulation Omega-7 is designed for a squadron-level engagement. Are you certain?" "Quite certain, Concord Control," Cole replied smoothly. "We wouldn't want to waste anyone's time with a lesser challenge." In the main observation dome, the dismissive smirks began to falter, replaced by frowns of disbelief, then outright incredulity. Vargos Krell leaned forward, his earlier amusement gone. "Omega-7? For that? Are they suicidal?" Lyraxia's feathers ruffled. This is either supreme arrogance or a level of folly previously unrecorded. Ragnar Stonefist actually stopped thinking about the feast. Now this might be interesting. Either they have something hidden, or we're about to see the shortest fireworks display in history. Cognate Prime 9's optical sensors narrowed slightly. New data required new calculations. The probability of human success was still infinitesimally small, but the unexpected request was illogical, unless there was a significant unknown variable. Dr. Sharma watched the flurry of confused messages on the tactical displays originating from the Concord. "They seem perturbed, Captain." "Let them be," Cole said, a glint in his eye. "It's always more fun to dance when your partner doesn't know your steps." He watched as the target drones for Omega-7 began to warp into the testing zone, far more numerous, far more dangerous than anything shown before. "Prepare the phase discontinuity drive, Dr. Sharma. Full operational readiness." Anya Sharma's smile widened. "With pleasure, Captain." Her fingers danced across her console. "Drive charged and synchronized, awaiting your command for the overture." The vast empty stage of space was now filling with a menacing array of simulated threats. The little UNS Stark Raving Mad sat in their midst, a solitary island in a sea of impending doom. The invitation had been issued. The galaxy held its breath, unsure if they were about to witness a miracle or a massacre. The command "Initiate Omega-7" echoed from Concord Control, and the testing zone erupted. Hundreds of high-velocity attack drones, their simulated disruptor cannons blazing, swarmed toward the lone human vessel. Behind them, cruiser-sized, targets maneuvered, launching volleys of what looked like phase-shifting torpedoes, weapons designed to bypass conventional shielding. It was a maelstrom of lethal intent, a scenario designed to saturate and overwhelm any known single ship's defenses. On the Celestial Concord's observation deck, a collective gasp went up. Even Ragnar Stonefist grunted. By the forge of my ancestors, not even the Iron Fang could weather that storm head-on without a scratch. Vargos Krell nodded grimly. The Terran vessel will be vapor in moments. But the UNS Stark Raving Mad did not meet the onslaught head-on. It did not raise enhanced shields or unleash a storm of counterfire. Instead, as the first wave of disruptor, bolts was about to converge on its position, the SRM vanished, not in a shimmer of Ilarian stealth, nor in a burst of FTL speed. One moment it was there, a clear target on every sensor array. The next, empty space. The disruptor bolts crisscrossed where it had been, striking nothing but vacuum. A split second later, the SRM reappeared. Not meters away, but a full kilometer to starboard and slightly above its previous position, already angled away from a fresh volley of torpedoes that now sailed harmlessly past. Before the drones could reacquire a firing solution, it blinked out again. "What in the void?" Lyraxia breathed, her usually sleek feathers visibly ruffled. Her race prided itself on unparalleled agility, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't flying. This was teleportation. Cognate Prime 9's optical sensors whirred audibly. Anomaly detected. Spatio-temporal distortion inconsistent with known drive technologies. Multiple instances. Tracking. Failing. Its internal processors, usually a bastion of calm logic, were flagging countless errors. The SRM's movements were not just fast. They were discontinuous, defying the predictive algorithms that were the bedrock of Volt targeting systems. Aboard the SRM, the atmosphere was electric, but controlled. Targeting solution lock from Drone Squadron Alpha Red. Incoming Vector 090 Karam 01 Fim, a tactical officer called out. Compensate. Micro-jump phase shift by 0.3 Delta. Re-emerge Vector 270. Captain Cole ordered, his voice preternaturally calm, his eyes darting between the main view screen and Dr. Sharma's ecstatic face. "Executing," Sharma confirmed, her fingers a blur on her console. "Drive cycling perfectly, Captain. They can't even paint us." The Stark Raving Mad became a phantom. It flickered through the simulated battlefield like a madly blinking star. A salvo of heavy plasma bolts from a cruiser analog, calculated for a kill shot, found only empty space as the SRM winked out of existence, only to reappear on the cruiser's flank, far too close for its main guns to track. A dense swarm of interceptor drones designed for close-quarters engagement closed in on its last known position, their own targeting locks finally acquiring a signal, only for the human ship to materialize directly behind their formation, as if it had passed through them. Vargos Krell was on his feet, his massive fists clenched. Sorcery. This is not warfare, it is trickery. His mind, steeped in traditions of armored behemoths trading blows, could not process what he was seeing. Ships moved. They didn't simply be Ragnar Stonefist, who had been expecting a quick, albeit entertaining, explosion, was now leaning forward, his jaw slack, a bewildered grin spreading across his face. "Ha! The little runt can dance, it can truly dance." He wasn't sure what he was seeing, but it was undeniably spectacular. Emissary Kalen Voss's elegant composure was, for the first time, visibly strained. His people's ghost technology was about subtle sensor evasion, about remaining unseen. This Terran ship was blatantly visible one moment, utterly gone the next, then visible again in a position that defied all known principles of propulsion or stealth. It was a far more audacious and seemingly more effective form of evasion. "Impossible," he murmured, the word barely audible. The energy signatures for such transitions, they should be tearing the ship apart. On the bridge of the SRM, there was no sign of tearing. The ship hummed with a quiet power. The phase discontinuity drive wasn't just jumping, it was allowing for minute, instantaneous shifts in its spatial coordinates, effectively rewriting its position in spacetime on a moment-by-moment basis. It wasn't so much dodging attacks as it was choosing not to be where the attacks were going to land. The initial overwhelming wave of Omega-7, designed to cripple or destroy any conventional ship in seconds, had passed. The UNS Stark Raving Mad remained untouched, a ghostly presence weaving through a web of deadly fire it seemingly refused to acknowledge. The vast sensor network of the Celestial Concorde struggled to maintain a consistent lock, its displays a flickering chaos of disappearing and reappearing contacts. The aliens in the observation dome were, for the most part, stunned into silence. The boasts of their own flagships, the confident pronouncements of their military doctrines now seemed quaint. They had shown off their biggest swords and fastest arrows, only for the quiet newcomer to demonstrate an ability to simply not be where the blow was aimed. Captain Cole allowed himself a small, tight smile. "Phase 1 complete, Dr. Sharma. They seem receptive to our methods." Anya Sharma was practically vibrating with excitement. "Receptive is one word for it, Captain. I believe gobsmacked might be more accurate. Drive integrity at 100%. Ready for the next movement in this symphony?" The Stark Raving Mad ceased its frantic dance for a brief moment, hanging in the void, surrounded by the confused, milling remnants of the first attack wave. The ghost had struck, not with a weapon, but with the sheer baffling impossibility of its movement. And now it seemed ready to show what else it could do. The brief stillness in the testing zone was deceptive. The remaining elements of Simulation Omega-7, including several cruiser-class drone targets and fresh waves of attack craft, began to regroup, their simulated AI commanders attempting to adapt to the SRM's inexplicable evasiveness. New firing solutions were being calculated, saturation patterns plotted. The lesson of the phased discontinuity drive hadn't fully sunk in. The simulated enemy still believed that enough firepower, correctly applied, could overwhelm any defense. The bridge of the UNS Stark Raving Mad. Captain Cole gave a curt nod. "Dr. Sharma, if you please, let's not drag this out. Target priority, the cruiser analogs, then area suppression for the drone swarms." Anya Sharma's eyes gleamed. "Entropic. Field emitters charging, Captain. Designating primary targets now." From recessed apertures along the SRM's hull, emitters extended. Not menacing gun barrels or missile tubes, but sleek, almost delicate-looking crystalline arrays. They began to glow with a soft internal light, a barely perceptible hum thrumming through the deck plates. Then focused beams, almost invisible to the naked eye save for a faint distortion in the space they traversed, lanced out towards the nearest drone cruiser. There was no colossal explosion. No screech of tortured metal. No dazzling energy discharge. Instead, where the beam touched the drone cruiser's flank, its thick armor plating seemed to dull. The metallic sheen hazed over, turning a sickly mottled gray. Spiderweb cracks, like those in ancient sun-baked clay, spread rapidly across its surface. Lights on that section of the drone flickered erratically, then died. Weapon emplacements, moments before tracking the SRM, sagged and went inert, their targeting mechanisms frozen. On the Celestial Concorde's main holoscreen, which was zoomed in on the targeted drone, the effect was chillingly clear. It wasn't being destroyed, it was being unmade. Systems weren't just damaged, they were aging at an accelerated, catastrophic rate. Materials were losing cohesion. Power conduits were crumbling to dust, and vital components were simply ceasing to function as their fundamental structures failed. What is that?" Vargos Krell stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. He'd seen ships vaporized, shields shattered, hulls breached by raw power. He'd never seen a warship simply rot. The entropic field beam played across the drone cruiser, and within seconds the entire vessel was a derelict. Its simulated reactors went cold, its weapons went silent, its structural integrity compromised beyond recovery. It drifted, intact, but utterly lifeless, a ghost ship in its own right. The SRM shifted its aim. Another cruiser analog suffered the same fate, then a third. The process was eerily quiet, horrifyingly efficient. Wing Commander Lyraxia watched, her vibrant plumage seeming to lose some of its luster. Her swarm tactics relied on the resilience and numbers of her craft. But what if each craft could be touched by this technological plague and simply fall apart? The thought sent a shiver down her avian spine. Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist was utterly bewildered, his earlier boisterousness gone. He kept looking around the observation dome as if expecting someone to explain the distinct lack of fireballs. But where is the bang? He muttered to one of his Krelnar brethren. Where is the glorious fire? This is not how ships die. This silent, creeping decay was anathema to his warrior spirit. It felt wrong, unclean. Cognate Prime 9's internal fans whirred at maximum. Its processors were struggling to categorize the phenomenon. Analysis: localized entropic acceleration, rapid increase in molecular decay, energy signature, unknown. This technology is not present in any known galactic database. The implications are significant. Significant was the Volt Centigrade's term for something that broke all their predictive models. Emissary Kalen Voss leaned forward, his expression one of intense, almost fearful concentration. This was a weapon of terrifying subtlety. Not the brute force of the Skoran, nor the overwhelming numbers of the Era, nor even the precise destruction of the Volt. This was something that bypassed conventional defenses entirely, attacking the very existence of the target. A silent, inevitable end. The SRM then turned its attention to the swarming attack drones. The entropic field emitters pulsed, sending out wider, though less focused, waves of the decaying energy. Drones in the affected areas began to falter. Their engines sputtered, their guidance systems failed, their weapons flickered and died. Some simply fell apart in mid-flight, their components losing integrity. There were no explosions, just a spreading silence as the swarm withered. Within minutes, simulation Omega-7 was over. The UNS Stark Raving Mad hung in the void, untouched. Around it drifted a graveyard of simulated warships, not shattered and broken by explosive force, but inert, aged, and fundamentally undone. The only sounds in the Celestial Concorde's observation dome were the shocked inhalations and muttered exclamations of disbelief. The usual cacophony of post-demonstration analysis was replaced by a profound, stunned silence. Captain Cole surveyed the scene on his main view screen. "Report, Dr. Sharma." "All targets neutralized, Captain," Anya Sharma said, a note of quiet triumph in her voice. "Entropic field emitters performed within optimal parameters, negligible collateral energy dispersal. A clean, efficient demonstration." "Indeed," Cole agreed. He looked out at the silent, drifting hulks. "I believe we've given them something to consider." The silence from the Concorde was an answer in itself. The galaxy's most formidable military powers had just witnessed a display that not only defied their understanding of physics, but also challenged their very philosophies of conflict. Humanity hadn't just shown a new weapon, they'd unveiled a new paradigm. The silence in the Celestial Concorde's grand observation dome stretched for an uncomfortably long time. It was a heavy, weighted silence, thick with disbelief, and the dawning realization that the galactic order, as they knew it, had just been irrevocably tilted. The images of the inert, prematurely aged drone fleet, victims of an invisible, incomprehensible weapon, were seared into every observer's mind. The ghost-like dance of the UNS Stark Raving Mad, evading an onslaught that should have annihilated it, replayed in their thoughts. Finally, it was High War Master Vargos Krell of the Skoran Empire who broke the spell. His voice, usually a booming command, now raspy and subdued. "Captain Cole, what was that?" He gestured vaguely at the hollow screen depicting the silently drifting targets. Captain Cole's voice, calm and measured, replied through the Concorde's comm system. High War Master, what you witnessed was the application of principles we Terrans have been experimenting with. The evasive maneuvers were achieved through controlled, localized spatial distortion. As for the neutralization of the targets, that was a result of focused, localized entropic acceleration. The explanation, deliberately vague, offered names but no real understanding. Spatial distortion, entropic acceleration, Wing Commander Laraxia repeated, her crest quivering. These are theoretical concepts, Captain, not demonstrated battlefield applications. Indeed, Cole replied smoothly. Theory, as you know, often paves the way for practice, Wing Commander. Cognate Prime 9 spoke, its synthesized voice betraying a hint of something that might have been agitation if it were organic. The energy patterns, Captain Cole, they do not conform to known physics. The entropic decay rates are orders of magnitude beyond natural or induced phenomena. This implies a mastery of fundamental forces that... It paused, as if searching for the correct logical term. Is unprecedented. Chieftain Ragnar Stonefist, looking utterly deflated by the lack of explosions, finally found his voice, though it was uncharacteristically quiet. So, you just make them fall apart? No fire? No satisfying crunch? He shook his massive head. It's effective, Terran. Terrifyingly so, but it takes all the fun out of a good fight. Emissary Kalen Voss, his usual aloofness replaced by an expression of profound contemplation, was perhaps the one who grasped the strategic implications most deeply. You have demonstrated an ability to render conventional fleets obsolete, Captain, both in terms of evasion and engagement. The repercussions of this will be extensive. Captain Cole didn't elaborate further. He didn't need to. The demonstration had spoken for itself, louder than any boast. The representatives of the great powers exchanged uneasy glances, their meticulously crafted displays of might, their pride in their established technologies and doctrines, now felt like relics from a bygone era. Humanity, the quiet newcomer, the presumed underdog, had just redrawn the map of galactic power. The formal military showcase, scheduled for another cycle, quietly dissolved. There were no more boasts, no more posturing. Instead, hushed, urgent conversations filled the corridors and private channels of the celestial Concorde. Speculation was rampant. How had the Terrans, so new on the galactic scene, achieved such a leap? What other surprises did they hold? Was this a gesture of strength, a warning, or an invitation to a new kind of understanding? The representatives of the 5 great powers requested immediate private consultations with the Terran delegation. They were granted, but Captain Cole and Dr. Sharma revealed little more, politely deflecting deeply technical questions while reaffirming humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence from a position of undeniable newfound strength. Later, as the UNS Stark Raving Mad prepared for departure, its silhouette no longer looked underwhelming, but rather pregnant with unseen, almost terrifying potential. The other flagships, once titans of the void, now seemed a little less imposing. On the bridge of the SRM, Captain Cole stood beside Dr. Anya Sharma, looking out at the star-dusted canvas of space as the celestial Concorde receded behind them. The internal comm was quiet, the hum of the ship a comforting presence. Well, Anya, Cole said, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. I believe the term underestimated no longer applies to humanity, at least for a while. Dr. Sharma leaned against her console, weariness now evident but overshadowed by a deep, glowing satisfaction. Perhaps an understatement, Captain, she replied, her voice soft. We didn't just make an impression. We rewrote their understanding of what's possible. The galaxy just got a little more interesting. She paused, then added with a spark of her usual fire, and a lot more cautious about dismissing the mad ideas from Earth. Cole chuckled, a low, warm sound. Indeed. They invited us to a council of dreadnoughts, expecting a polite nod. We showed them a new dance. He looked towards the distant shimmer of the Milky Way, humanity's home. And now they'll have to learn the steps. The UNS Stark Raving Mad engaged its conventional FTL drive, a silent streak against the darkness, leaving behind a galaxy buzzing with the weight of revelation, forever changed by the quiet ingenuity of a species that had just emphatically announced its arrival.